Markets at noon on ET Now. Well, in today's segment of Corporate Corner on the show, let's connect with the management of IndiGrid. There's a new sponsor that's looking to perhaps increase stake in the company. What are the changes we're expecting, and also what's the outlook for the company? How do the growth prospects look? And how are the collection efficiencies as well essentially trending? We have with us Harsh Shah, the CEO and whole-time director with IndiGrid. Harsh, many thanks for joining us today. So let's start off first with the outlook from the new sponsor. Are there any changes in the shareholding that we can expect?
Hi, thank you, and thanks for having us. We don't expect any immediate change in shareholding on account of an addition of the sponsor. This move enables the new sponsor, KKR and its affiliates, to increase the stake in subsequent rounds beyond 25%. There is no proposal to increase the stake immediately.
Okay. Harsh, so there's no intention at this point of time for the new sponsor to increase stake in the company, is that right?
No, I'm not talking about intention. At least along with this resolution that we are looking to do it on 28th of September, the proposal is just to enable them to increase stake subsequently, but there is no immediate stake increase that is happening right now. If as part of the process, if there is some exit option that need to be provided, in that scenario, there may be some increase of stake.
Right. Can you just tell us that, how are things moving on at the various project levels? Are things back to normal? Can you just talk to us about, what really happened after the lockdown and how things are now getting better day by day?
Sure. So I would say things have improved materially. To some extent, in general, power consumption and peak demand has crossed the pre-COVID level on a month-on-month basis. So if you were to look at first week of September in 2019 versus 2020, the data suggests that both demand and peak demand is slightly higher than what was there last year in 2019. So I think the sector needs to be looked at on a month-on-month basis instead of a year-to-date basis, because the lockdown months were a washout in terms of power demand and consumption. But incremental basis, we have seen a good amount of recovery in power consumption and peak demand. Second is, for our business model, which is transmission, our revenues are not linked to power consumption. Therefore, our tariffs and revenues did not get impacted during the COVID period, and our revenues had no impact. Our collections dropped to some extent in the Q1 because of logistical issues and liquidity issues with our customers. However, we have seen post Q1, collections are coming back to more than 100%, essentially talking about that recovering what was unrecovered in Q1. The recovery process has started substantially. So in the months of Q2, we have received more than 100% collections. So we are recovering Q2 collections, plus getting back on something Q1, which was not collected in Q1 on account of the COVID impact.
Right. In terms of power demand, how important that indicator is, in history when you have seen for GDP growth? Can you just talk to us about that for industrial recovery, residential recovery, what's happening over there? Can you just talk to us historically, what has been the numbers that you're seeing now in the sector and what essentially has happened historically?
Sure. So historically, power demand has been a very good high frequency indicator in terms of the economic activity coming back. And because that's like you switch on a light, you switch on a plant and you suddenly see a spurt in growth. So that's a very, very good indicator of economic activity picking up of different kinds, depending on the mix of demand. So I would say it is a good, reliable data piece to track in overall economic activities picking up. And we are seeing that happening in the country now. Now, be mindful, we are looking at 2019 data to compare where are we today. So the numbers that I just said, we have just crossed marginally 2019 data for the first week of September. So that suggests that the recovery is back to normal, but we're still at the base. And we'll need to monitor it on a week on week basis of how electricity consumption grows, which would form a good proxy to see how economic activity is coming back to normal or growing, both.
All right. Okay. Harsh, within the entire power space, is power transmission still relatively a bit more comfortably placed?
Oh yeah, certainly. And there are several factors which leads to that. Power transmission, first of all, acts like a network of service, which is kind of a monopolistic network where all the interstate transmission lines are pulled together. And the cost that it goes to the consumer is fairly small, but it provides a very essential service. And this is something which is enabling customers to keep paying for transmission service in a country like India, where the source, which is the generating center, and the consumption, where it's happening in the either demand centers of industrials or residential, are far different than each other. So we believe transmission plays a very important role in delivering reliable power to consumers at a very reasonable or a low cost. And therefore, it's a catalyst which is very essential for the sector to survive, not just to grow. And that's the reason we are in a sweet spot where our collections, tariffs are far more secured versus a segment of a sector where you have contracts where your prices are changing, where you take that risk.
So, Harsh, I just want to understand going forward, what's the business outlook? And, if there are any new projects that you're perhaps looking or planning to acquire as well?
Yeah. So we, over last 3 years, have grown about 60% annual growth rate on assets, on EBITDA and different parameters. And I think acquiring projects is a core business. We acquired about 5,000 crores of assets in FY20. We have already acquired 2,500 crores of assets in FY21 during the lockdown. So we acquired 2 large projects from Sterlite Power and 1 project from Kalpataru and Techno Electric, which we are looking to close now. In addition to that, we have another pipeline of about 5,500 crores of projects, which we'll look to close over next 12 months, which would take our AUM to about 19 to 20,000 crores in next 6 to 12 months. So I think that's something the outlook remains positive. Besides that, we are also looking to diversify and have solar assets with good counterparties, operating solar assets to add to our portfolio. It will remain a transmission platform with 75% of our assets being transmission assets. However, we may look to diversify selectively, carefully, some of the solar assets in the portfolio, which offer a good opportunity to add to our portfolio.
Right. Thanks so much, Harsh, for taking out time for us. Good to get perspective. Hope you and your family are safe at this point of time when things are opening up, but situation on the ground probably is not looking